Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Casa Grande study session. On the agenda tonight is our Community Services Department. Mr. Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Haven't been up in front of you for some time, so it's good to see everybody. With any project we bring up, we always talk about the strategic plan if we can. Trails are listed specifically in the strategic plan. Tonight's focus will be more on the Casa Grande Mountain only. I know that we have a project coming up for other trails within the city, but we'll do that for another time. The Regional Trail System Master Plan was presented to the council back in 2008. It's been embedded in the general plan, so we always look to, whenever we're talking about trails, we always look to this for guidance. Just a little history of Casa Grande Mountain. We do have 17 miles of marked trail up there on the mountain. There's many more miles of trail that weave in and out of the city-owned property. The 17 miles are all on city-owned property. There's other miles that weave in and out that are on private land, other government land. So lots of different trails up there, but we were talking about the marked trails that are groomed. All of these trails are called single track trails, which are 24 inches wide and designed for hiking, biking, and equestrian use only. When you have a single track trail, it's designed, well, the trails that we have were designed for sustainability and safety. The sustainability part is so that when you design a trail, you don't have a big monsoon and then wash it out. So they pick the location and the grade and the way it's designed, built so that it can withstand monsoons and withstand erosion, and trying to keep the loose rock out of the trails. There's a lot of embedded rock, and that helps hold everything in. The trails have been largely maintained by volunteer groups over the years. The mountain park was officially designated in 2012, so between 2012 and 2020, it was mostly volunteer efforts. Starting in 2020, we've been doing contracted trail maintenance. You'll see that in our budget annually from now on, and we're going to try to do semi-annual routine maintenance up on the trail. You can see from this picture the before and after of what a non-groomed trail versus when it's groomed. When it's been used quite a bit, you'll have a lot of loose rock, and loose rock is a little dangerous for the hikers and bikers and equestrian. So that's why you're trying to groom it and keep out the vegetation. Since the COVID issue hit us, OHV sales have been unprecedented, not only locally, but regionally and nationally. I've talked to the state and the county, and they're having these same issues. And OHV, just so we're talking the same thing, is off-highway vehicles. So it includes a lot of different vehicles, but all designed for off-roading use. OHV use sales have been unprecedented since in the last 12 to 18 months.
What does that stand for?
Off-highway vehicles.
Off-highway
Okay.
So you hear me say OHV a lot when we're talking about off-road or Jeeps or things like that. So Casa Grande Mountain wasn't designed for off-road vehicle use. Historically, there's some old Jeep trails that go in and out of the mountain, but when the single track trails were designed and built, those Jeep trails were not included in it. Single track trails typically will traverse the mountain across the face, where a lot of OHV will go straight up and down the mountain. So that perpendicular usage damages the single track trails quite a bit. And continued OHV use brings up large rock, is very rutted, and again, typically perpendicular to the trail. And you can see these trails up here on the pictures show our single track trails with OHV trails that go across them. So you can imagine riding your bike at a fairly high clip, coming around a curve and then hitting a big rut that's been caused by OHV. So it's fairly dangerous. And we've had some near misses up there too, where vehicles are traveling in one direction and bikes or hikers in another direction. So little concerning up on the mountain. We do have quite a few fences up there trying to define our mountain park. The fences are typically barbed wire, not typically, all barbed wire. It's obviously easily breached. Barbed wire is easily breached by folks. And then another issue up there is we have a lot of landowners. You'll see by the maps that I'm going to show in a few minutes, multiple landowners around the mountain, and it causes multiple access points where OHV use can get into the mountain park. And you can see from the pictures, I just happened to be out there taking some pictures one day, and you see this off-roader coming in and out of an access point there. The barbed wire has been cut and the sign's laying on the ground there. Just kind of a depiction of what we're dealing with on the mountain. The good news for OHV users is that there's hundreds of miles of trail in Arizona. They're designed for OHV use. They're funded, approved, and heavily used. When in talking to the state and county folks, they definitely don't recommend that you have hiking and biking trails in the same location as OHV trails. They like to keep them separated. So that's what we're kind of talking about tonight is Casa Grande Mountain really isn't designed for the off-road vehicle use. Another issue is the typical OHV area that has a lot of miles of trail. We just have a few miles of area that we could use. Now we have 17 miles of single track trail, but that 17 miles winds up and around the mountain. So we don't have 17 miles of off-roading opportunity up there. There's a good website on the state's Game and Fish that gives places to ride, rules, regulations, safety tips, all kinds of things for OHV users to use. This map is kind of the northern end of Casa Grande Mountain to orient yourself. All of those yellow dots represent the potential access points where people can get into the park. I'm sure that there's more out there. We're trying to define those every day. We've spent the last few months traveling around. Some of them also defined our trailheads and things like that. But and this issue is not limited just to the city-owned property either. It's all over the mountain. Next map's going to show the southern end more of the mountain, all the different access points. So there's a lot of different landowners, a lot of different ways to get into the mountain. It's a beautiful place if you've been out there, but it definitely has some issues with all the different things we're talking about tonight. This is an overlay of the city-owned property up on the mountain. You can see we have kind of an odd-shaped piece. I think the next one will show also, we'll go back and forth between these two. The large purple area up there is the Dreamport Village project. It also includes, well, you can't see it very well. This map is 36 by 48 normally. I have a copy of it if you want to see it afterwards. But this shows all the different landowners and all the different uses up there on the mountain. The first one depicts really what the city-owned property is. So you can see there's, down in the bottom, there's Eloy city limits. Over on the far left is state land. The big purple area is military reservation. The green area is Casa Grande. The purple area up to the top right is the Dreamport Village area, and then privately owned land all around the mountain. One of the other items for discussion tonight is the shooting that happens out around the mountain. As you know, we have a gun range. It's got 5 bays. It's located on Isom Road. The picture on the left shows the gun range. What happens typically when the gun range is very busy, it's very easy for shooters to go on further south, and that yellow circled area there shows the areas that are on private land that gun users typically use. The truck shown there is just a a depiction of where they go. They just go into an area. It's typically on private land. It is fenced, but the fences are broken, and so people go in and out of there quite easily. Our gun range is in the city limits. The next parcel to the south is in the city limits, and then the next parcel further south of that is in the county. So you have different jurisdictions throughout the area. And unfortunately, shooters typically leave behind some debris and trash left over from their shooting. Unfortunately, if you look, I've looked on Google Earth, that area south of the gun range, you can actually see the damage from the satellite photos. It's really just stripped the habitat out of that area. Another little issue right there, and it's not a little issue, but they're shooting any ricochets or any stray bullets go right into the mountain park where people are hiking and biking. And I have had bikers tell me that they've had bullets whiz by. They can hear them. And unfortunately, the further south you go, the lower the mountain is, and our mountain trails kind of wind on the southeast part of the mountain. So there are some conflicts out there that can be concerning. The last item that's for discussion tonight is the trash and the illegal dumping that happens. These are some photos that are on the BLM property that's on the far south end of the mountain. It is also right in, just south of that is Pinal County and Eloy. So there's 3 different jurisdictions that have a lot of the trash on them. And we are planning a cleanup we'll talk about here in just a minute. But this trash is mainly on the south end of the mountain where it's the most remote. We don't have as much trash problems on the north end. It's a little heavier used, closer to the highway, more visible. And it shows, and there's large items and small items. So definitely a concern up there. So moving forward, our action plan kind of has 3 steps. Tonight is a continuation of the awareness. Then we're going to work on education, and finally enforcement. So the education part is going to start Saturday, April 3rd with our cleanup day. So in conjunction with Keep Casa Grande Clean and Beautiful, we're going to also do the first CG Mountain cleanup. And when I say the first official, there's been several cleanups out there over the years, but we're going to try to semi-annually to work it in conjunction with our Keep Casa Grande Clean and Beautiful. This first time, we're going to focus on the southern part, which is right at the corner of the BLM land. You can see by the depiction on the right there how you get to it. It doesn't have an address, so we hope that everybody can get out there. But we have a Google Maps location. We'll have some signage. It's basically you just follow Isom Road around until you get to the corner of Isom Road and Hennis Road, and you'll see our tents and volunteers and everybody that's out there. The nice part from the city's aspect, we've had a good multi-department work on this project. We're going to have sanitation services out there, of course, community services, code enforcement, and the police department will be out there. The state game and fish will have a presence, so we will have some uniform officers locally and statewide, and we're also trying to work with Pinal County and Eloy to try to get some of their officers out there. The education piece, we will be passing out, if they see that day off-roaders or shooters, they'll be trying to pass these items out that I've given to you, just to try to start the education process, and our guys through the social media will also be promoting those same educational pieces. After the April 3rd event, we will be planning to replace some of the broken down barbed wire fencing. The pictures that you saw that have the most trash and the most access there on the southern end, we're going to replace that with pipe rail fencing, which is obviously more permanent and more difficult to breach. And so that will be hopefully coming in the next few weeks. Following the pipe rail fencing, then we'll be doing increased signage and then the enforcement. Again, just some of our promotional items. That's really just this piece that's in a format that I can show you on a PowerPoint. One nice thing on it is when we do talk to the folks that are out there using, obviously it's an educational part. They may not know that they can't drive out there. And so we're going to show them places that they can join a club or go to the state's website and assist them in places that they can ride legally. You know, one of the things I'm bringing this up tonight just so that we look at Casa Grande Mountain as an asset. You know, this is a depiction of what it could look like. Those previous pictures are some places of what it does look like. And so issues that happen out there can take decades to repair. So we need to try to start drawing a line in the sand, so to speak, and try to start doing something about it so we can preserve it for the future. So in the future years and beyond, you know, I'm asking the council to support the enforcement activities, support the initiatives that we have, assist in the culture change. We are planning to, and we do have some CIP projects that will be coming up in future years. We need to move the Peart Road trailhead. The Peart Road trailhead is currently on leased property. We need to move it to city-owned property and then connect the trails so that we're all on city-owned land. We are trying to work with adjoining landowners to assist with fencing and signage. It will help if they mark their land no trespassing, because that's another sign that you shouldn't be driving or shooting on that. I do believe that we should look to acquire adjacent land when available, just so that we can try to cut down the access points so that it's just easier to maintain. And of course, preserving Casa Grande Mountain for future generations. So with that, floor is open for questions.
Donna, go ahead.
First of all, I love the positive attitude about education, of how you're doing that so that we can let those people know where they can go. But I want to ask about when we get to that line in the sand and we have to, you know, we have to do enforcement, what do you think that that's going to look like? I mean,
well, we've been working with the police department, and of course, that's not my area of expertise, but they have a plan, and their plan will, and they've done some research on the statutes and things that could cite people with. So I think we would announce a date that we're going to start enforcing after a short time of education, and then they'll have some increased patrols and increased awareness out there, and then we'll start working on different plans to. I don't know specifically, because I think we'll have to dive into it and then adjust on the fly. Just because of the vast nature of the land, it's not like stopping somebody on Florence Boulevard for speeding. So we'll have to work on some strategies to make it safe and enforceable.
and I know that you guys have done a really good job at trying to educate, and I saw a video that was done, and that was an excellent example. We just need to get that out there and update those so that, you know, we get those, you know, in the hands of the people that need to watch it.
Right. And I did fail to mention, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up to you tonight is in the last 12 months, I've had numerous emails, numerous phone calls, a couple visits of complaints from citizens. And so I don't know if you've had them, but
Yes.
I've been here almost 4 years now. In the first 3 years, Casa Grande Mountain, for me, was kind of out of sight, out of mind. I mean, people were using it and everybody's happy, and I didn't hear anything positive or negative. And then in the last 12 months, I've had probably 20 at least different citizens contact me. So
Go ahead, Mary. Lisa?
Well, and that's probably, with COVID, like you said, more and more people are using, you know, going outdoors, and probably many of these people don't necessarily not follow those rules, but are familiar with them. So, but no, it's good that we need to get in on it now, and I know you had some of the bullet points of what we need to do as far as supporting your efforts. Do you feel that you have proper funding for signage and the barbed wire to go where they need to go, any dumpsters and things like that? Because we might have to invest in a little bit more than what we have, since we're having a larger population use the park.
sure. So
Just say yes, Steve. Just say yes.
That'll be my job in the CIP process. And then there's also state grant funding.
Okay, good.
So when we've reached out to the game and fish folks, they were very excited because they have money available for remediation, so to speak, and enforcement. So we'll be looking at all avenues for funding. Just to give you, for instance, we're doing 700 feet of pipe rail fence, and I just did a quick Google Earth search for fence today, and I'll bet we have 5,000 to 7,000 feet of barbed wire fence right now. We don't need all of it replaced. We just need the key access points replaced with something more sturdy.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Steve, can you tell me where the nearest trail then to ride the off-road vehicles is in relation to our community?
We would have to get on the state's website and click on that and look. I know there's some over in Florence.
Yeah.
There's some south near, and would I say Sawtooth Mountains south?
Box Canyon.
Box Canyon.
Box Canyon area for sure.
It's up north of Florence.
And as part of the enforcement increase in police presence out there?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
It's been a valuable asset, and we got all the trails built by the volunteers. And now, the neat thing is, of course, you recognize it, is we're trying to get our trails all connected together, but you realize that we have to also put in our budget to maintain these trails every year, because we did get to have we got a lot of good grants to build those trails, but I'm glad to see that. And kind of with Lisa, if you let us know, because that budget part's gonna be a big piece of it, so I'm sure you will.
Sure.
But another thing I was thinking is signage, bigger signage too, just saying no off-highway vehicles, because there's plenty of places to do it, they're popular, but there's places you can't, so.
Sure, and I'm learning over time that, if you don't have the proper signage, people don't know.
That's exactly
And-
the education piece is,
Right.
they think they can ride there because someone just rode there yesterday, so.
Right.
I think, yeah, I could ride
And
there.
we're gonna try to get a little more sturdy and professional signage too, so. It's gonna definitely be a multi-year campaign.
Mr. Powell?
The off-road vehicles, to me, and no motorized vehicle signs on that whole area are really important. My daughter went out with some friends, and she'd never been on one. They call it a blade? Is that what they call it?
Razor?
What?
Razor?
Razor, not a blade, a razor. Razor blade. And it was her first time, and they were off-roading there on CG Mountain on the east side, and the driver had flipped over, and my daughter was under it. They said she died 3 times going before they got her to care, that she would pass away and come back, and the Eloy people came in and took care of it, but boy, that's dangerous when you get on elevation like you have there. That's what they love to do and it just, even out around the rodeo grounds right now in that desert, they're tearing it up. And they got dust and trails and tearing up the foliage that is normally there. And so the no motorized vehicles, I think, is excellent. That would cover some of the bikes or other things, depending on what people are using.
Sure. And like I said before, in Arizona, the great place is there's hundreds and hundreds, I may say thousands of miles of trail available.
Oh, yeah.
So, that are designed for that, so.
Well, that mountain is beautiful. I mean, some of your pictures, you might have to get in Arizona highways, but it is a beautiful mountain, and people abuse it so badly. I've seen people where there's a fence and there's a gate about 20 yards away, and they'll cut it and go through the fence instead of going through and open the gate and going through. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of that type of thing that happens. And of course, people that camp or target practice or whatever have to be, as you insinuated, very careful on what they do there. But it is a beautiful mountain we have.
Go ahead, Bob.
I wanted to tag on to what Jeff asked about where is the nearest legitimate place that people can go to ride their vehicles. And I think that's always been a problem down in this area. 45 years ago, I was the kid on the motorcycle out there screeching around the mountain and everything. And back then, we would get told, you know, there's only certain places you can ride, and Florence was always the nearest one. Well, we didn't have that ability to load things up and go to Florence. It doesn't excuse it, you know, I don't want to say let's open it up because it will destroy it, but maybe on a side effort, we should see if there's anything we can do with the state to get an area established for those vehicles. The shooting range people are, I don't know, that may be a easier fix than the off-roaders, because there is a nice facility there, and they can be redirected to that. So I'm hoping that'll cure itself pretty quick. But anyway, if there's an avenue, and I don't know what that is, but if there's an avenue that we could try to establish a place where they can go. And I think a lot of these people are, they're driving them straight out of their driveway and heading for the mountain. You know, they're not loading them up to go someplace else. But I don't know. Years ago, there used to be some pits and stuff out there that we would ride in. Those may be fenced and signed as well. I don't know if there's any potential or not, but.
Sure.
Just
I'll be
a
happy
thought.
to, Larry, I'll be happy to produce a list that you could email.
Thank you.
The list that'll be from our state folks, and then I'll ask the county and state to give some further advice, because there's some places that are not listed on their
Okay.
website, but they direct you to them, so.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, thanks really for this. Obviously, CG Mountain's important to everybody, and anytime anybody asks you if you need money, just tell them yes. I did have one comment on the shooting. Is our current shooting range adequate enough for the people and the number of people who use
No.
it?
No.
Okay, so what happens is it gets busy. It was a loaded question. Thank you for answering it. Is there any way to expand our shooting range so that we can get more people on it, and that might keep people from shooting, you know, wildly in the desert?
Sure, and I don't think I have a good picture of the exact,
I think
Where
you had an aerial, but
right, well, I'll have to do a little research there on where our
it's just
land
it's just an
stops.
idea. It's just an idea. I mean, maybe there's a way to acquire additional land right in there and expand it. If that's the case, and we can do that, might be something to look at.
Sure.
I had another question about the shooting areas, and Steve, I don't know the name of the features on the mountain, but the valley area, if you go around to the south and then back up into the mountain, there's kind of a valley in there. There was a cover, a manufactured cover that was back there, and a lot of people used to go back there to shoot as well. Do we have any control over that area, or is that even still there?
That's on our land. I think I know exactly right where you're talking about. And there's some old roads that kind of come in and out of there. And the cover is gone.
Okay.
The concrete pad is still there. A lot of broken glass around it, so I can imagine where the shooting took place.
Yeah.
But
Is
that
that-
is definitely an area, honestly, that's an area that needs to be remediated.
Okay.
Because it's the broken glass is
Okay.
definitely.
I know it was a mess 20 years ago.
Yeah, but the only way to get in there now is, on foot, which is easy to get in there. But there are some places that have been breached that's easy to drive a vehicle up over. So
Okay.
that's where we'll be looking at these key access points to try to limit that access for the Jeep roads that are crossing the trails.
Okay.
I heard in the 90s some kids used to go out there and drink beer at that place too. Did have a cover, I heard. But the other thing is with the shooting, and Larry and I have talked about it for years, and I'm glad to have a proponent, Mayor, because I don't know how many of you have gone out there. Ralph and I went out there, Councilman Ralph Varela, because he didn't really understand it. So I took him out there one day, and we shot safely at the range, and he really enjoyed it. And he had no idea how many people actually use that. But I don't know how many of you guys been out there on Saturday. Last time I drove by, I know exactly what you're talking about, because the range was packed, and on down was even more packed. So the other closest one, and people come from all over the state to come to ours because it's free and easy to use.
Sure.
So if you want any help. see
And
what
we
can
have 5 bays out there, and there's 1 long bay, 2 50-yard bays, and 2 25-yard bays. So the long one's, I think, 100 yards, but, so it's kind of rifles, medium range, and pistols.
Yeah, and then the model airplane club is across the street.
Right.
Correct.
And that's on our property, on city property, right, that they lease?
Right.
Right, we have a lease agreement with
And
them.
they've been very, very good.
Oh, they take care of their
stewards.
property
Yeah.
very good,
Of the land.
yes.
And then one more about the cleanup, I'm sorry. How are you publicizing this?
We've just started publicizing it. You know, we'll have a press release out if it hadn't gone out already. We'll be publicizing it through all of our social media channels. We've also been reaching out directly to our volunteer groups and have gotten some moderate success with that. Obviously, word of mouth is going to assist in that, and then tonight's presentation is part of our
I mean, we'll help a
campaign.
lot and get out to the clubs, service clubs in town, and I'm gonna share it with the youth commission, because they were asking to clean up something. I'm like, well, there you go.
And there's miles of places to clean up.
Yep.
So if we have 40 people, it's great. If we have 240 people, we can find something to clean.
But thank you.
Mr. Powell?
You know, one of the big issues is a backstop for that. And I've seen people that would put barrels up right at the foot of the mountain, and where people were and shoot at them. And that is one of the biggest things. You have to have some kind of a backstop to absorb that, so they can't shoot over it.
Doesn't ricochet.
And try to destroy people, because that's been an issue for a long time. I've several times called, and I forget who was had your job at that point in time, but I told them what I was seeing and had them go over and check the barrel, and the National Guard still owns a huge amount of that area, so we don't really control it. We're there at their leisure right now.
Yeah, in
They
their
talked about
area.
it one time about giving that to us and trying to trade that for some property they had somewhere else, but it didn't come to fruition. So they never use it. They occasionally will, but when they use it, they want everybody out of the way, and so that's one of the things that comes with it is segueing with the National Guard and how they may want to use it.
And their area is depicted in the light purple there, that rectangular piece.
Utah-looking piece.
Yes, Lisa?
Well, you were talking about advertising. I just wanted to remind you to maybe call on the schools, the high schools. You know, I know Key Club, the clubs were always really active in the cleanups, and DECA and some of the cheer groups or whatever. I'm sure some of these sponsors would love to get their kids out and get them involved. So both high schools have Key Club, and I know they're really active.
I'm sure, and I know LaTanya will put out a press release, and she usually, that gets to all the schools, so it goes at least to the principals, so hopefully they'll share.
But Key Club is one to reach out directly. They would probably be good.
Okay?
Yeah, and there's a mountain biking club that we're going to be working
Yeah.
with, because they're
That'd be
users
good.
of it, and
Bike shop.
yes.
Any other questions for Steve? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, you'll probably have all this fixed in a couple of months, you think? Or?
Yeah.
No, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Mr. Raines, do we have anything else? That's it for the study session. Okay, then we'll stand adjourned until 7 o'clock.